Hi, I'm Mark Wall. I'm joined today by Martin Kutzler. We're PMs for Microsoft Entra, and we're going to be talking about how you can secure access for your workforce with Microsoft Entra Suite. Microsoft Entra provides a breadth of capabilities to help organizations secure the identities and access for their workforce, applications, customers, and partners across all their infrastructure, on-premises and the cloud. It provides a zero trust foundation and additional capabilities in order to help organizations get secure and stay secure as they continue to evolve and adopt more cloud services. Now let's take a look at some of the capabilities that we have within Microsoft Entra. We have the basic capabilities you'd expect for identity and access management. But in addition, Microsoft Entra includes zero trust network access, identity governance, customer identities, capabilities to help with workloads, verified IDs, or checking for excessive permissions across the cloud infrastructure. And this is all powered by Microsoft's underlying AI and security platform capabilities. Now, within the Microsoft Entra product family, we have a range of products that allow organizations to select the capabilities that they need. You might have been familiar with Azure Active Directory, which is now Microsoft Entra ID. In addition to Microsoft Entra ID, we now have new capabilities for private and internet access, as well as identity governance and products that align to the different capabilities for consumer and customer identities, for cloud identity and access, for workload identities, for verified ID, and more. Now, today, we're going to focus on the Microsoft Entra Suite. This is a unified collection of capabilities that builds on top of Microsoft Entra P1 and provides all the features needed for organizations of any size for their workforce. And with the Microsoft Entra Suite, which we've seen here, we're going to walk through how an organization can use these capabilities together for ensuring that the right people have access to the right resources at the right time, and they're using zero trust policies and procedures to ensure no one has excessive or unnecessary access. So let's walk through what kinds of things Microsoft Entra Suite can support. Well, as mentioned before, we can integrate with an organization's workforce systems. Active Directory and Microsoft Entra are the foundational identity technologies, and we'll see how you can connect Microsoft Entra Suite to all the organization's applications. We allow users to have their own devices or to use corporate devices across many platforms and to be able to access applications and resources regardless of whether they're in an organization's facilities or traveling or at home. So let's walk through the journey for how users would interact with Microsoft Entra Suite. We'll go through how organizations will onboard new users, how Microsoft Entra Suite helps you govern their access, and then secure their access across the range of applications and infrastructure that might be present in an organization today. So let's start with the onboarding process. For many organizations, this starts with authoritative HR systems. We support not just Workday and SuccessFactors, but many other systems which can be integrated through our inbound provisioning API. We also offer processes for business partners to be able to request, be able to approve accounts in Microsoft Entra ID, and those accounts can be automatically removed when users no longer need access. In addition, organizations can then govern the identity and the access lifecycle using Microsoft Entra Suite for automation. For many organizations, this starts by automating basic access rights. Employees get mailboxes, get added to groups, or provisioned to applications based on their job code, department, or other properties in the organization. In addition, we enable users to request additional access rights that they need through multi-stage approval workflows. And access can be time limited so that users do not retain access longer than is needed. If they change jobs, they can have their access be automatically removed, or access can be set to expire if no longer needed. In addition, we have additional just-in-time capabilities for administrative access to ensure that administrators do not have lingering standing access to critical systems like Microsoft 365, Azure, or other applications as well. We also offer access reviews to recertify users and their existing access rights to ensure users do not retain access longer than is needed. And there's always a process for how organizations ensure they're trending towards least privilege. And through our lifecycle automation, through Microsoft Entra Lifecycle Workflows, customers can extend the built-in capabilities for join, move, leave, access requests, access assignments with additional tasks for their environment to, for example, create and assign credentials when people onboard, issue tickets, and turn off access when people leave. Now, in addition to the ability to govern the access lifecycle, Microsoft Entra also provides capability to help the organization secure all forms of access. It provides visibility and control to help organizations be informed and understand how those access rights are being used. Microsoft Entra ID Protection monitors sign-in behavior in order to be able to detect and automatically respond if a user's sign-in credential might have been compromised. Microsoft Entra also integrates with Sentinel, Defender, and many other popular SIEM tools in order to provide signals for access and sign-in activity that could indicate a potential risk. And we have built-in mitigations to ensure that access and sign-ins are blocked and require remediation in case there might be a risk of compromise. Organizations can, of course, configure through conditional access policies what are their requirements for how users must sign in, when they must use multi-factor authentication, where they're able to sign in for each of the different applications in their environment. Now, you're probably already familiar with how Microsoft Entra powers the identity infrastructure for Microsoft applications like Microsoft 365, but we also have single sign-on and provisioning capabilities for hundreds of popular SaaS applications, as well as applications that are hosted on different cloud infrastructure or on-premises. Now, this has the ability to integrate with an organization's modern applications that support internet standards, as well as legacy applications, those that might be using Active Directory or other directories in its database. And we'll see through the Microsoft Entra Internet Access and Private Access how an organization can integrate even their legacy applications with Microsoft Entra to ensure that users only have access when needed, when approved, and that access is not maintained longer than is necessary. And now Martin's going to show us how the Microsoft Entra Suite can be used to govern and secure access across all the organization's applications. Martin?
Thanks, Mark. My name is Martin Kutzer, and I'm a PM in the Entra organization, and I help customers deploy our solutions. So in this demo, we're going to look at how you can combine the various products in the Entra Suite to make it easier for you to control access and give your users access to those various applications. So the first thing that I want to highlight is we want to enable private access and internet access in this organization. So to do this, we need to go to our Entra portal and make sure that we've enabled, as you can see in this case, private access and the internet access profile for our organization. The next thing that is important to remember is that we have to deploy a connector. A connector allows us to proxy requests down to on-premises services. And as you can see here, I've enabled a server that will allow us to do those private apps to the organization. From here, I can go and configure a new app. These apps can be very simple web applications. You might be familiar with those apps already, but it could also be advanced apps that will allow people to access those legacy applications like file share. So let's look at some of the applications that I've already configured in my environment. So I have two applications configured here. I have a file server and I have a financial dashboard. This financial dashboard is a simple web application that our finance people use to go and look at the data of the organization. And it's still running on the intranet. We also have an application that will allow us to go to our file services. And in this case, I'm going to show you how I'm going to integrate those applications with our access reviews. I want to make it really easy for people to onboard into this organization. The first thing that we need to do when we set up access packages for people for onboarding is set up a catalog. The catalog is a collection of resources that I can address in my access packages. So in this case, I have a bunch of applications and groups and teams that I can assign to users through those access packages. In terms of access packages, I can have multiple access packages associated with those catalogs. And you can see here that I have a financial access package that will allow me to assign new resources to new financial application users. And in this case, I'm assigning a finance team hybrid site. I'm assigning that financial dashboard, and I'm also assigning a file server and some other SharePoint site as well. The next step is setting up a workflow so that I can onboard new users into the organization. These workflows will make it easier when people join the organization or when they move around in the organization or when they leave the organization. And so in this case, I have set up a workflow that will allow us to onboard new employees into the finance department. And so I have a workflow specifically dedicated for onboarding users. The first thing that is important to highlight here is when will this workflow trigger? And so I can set up a specific trigger around a timed event or when something happens in my organization. And in this case, it's going to happen once I stamp the employee hire date. And this is typically done by the HR system. Another thing that I have to set up is the scope of this workflow. And in this case, you'll see when the department is set to finance, I will be able to start the process. Now let's look at what happens when this workflow starts. The first thing that it will do is it will go and enable the user account. It will assign a license to that user, and then it will go and set up a new temporary access pass so that that new user will be able to set up their multi-factor authentication and set up their PC when they get it. We can send an email to that user and finally assign that access package to the user. And so let's look at some of these examples. The temporary access pass or TAP is sent to the manager. The manager will have the ability to verify the user, make sure that he really is who he is, and send it to his personal account so that he can set up his MFA account for the organization. We can also look at the welcome email. In the welcome email, it sends it to the user, and we can customize that message to the user. And then finally, that access package, this will just reference the access package that I showed you earlier, including the initial policy. So now that we've set up all of these configurations, we can go ahead and set up the user. So you can see here that I've set up a new user, Adam Ness, and I'm going to look at his properties, and you'll see that we've stamped his employee hire date, and we are ready for him to get onboarded into this organization. So when I go back to my lifecycle workflow, I can look at my workflow history, and you will see that it picked up my new user. And if I click on this, I will see the details of that process and see that it has completed successfully. So let's look at the process of the specific user. As I mentioned, we've sent a TAP message to the manager, and the manager can now forward that information to the user. So this is the user's personal account. He's got the information now to set up his account for the first time. It tells him that he needs to set up Microsoft Authenticator app, and it gives him his new code. So the first thing that he needs to do is he needs to copy this code, and then he needs to go and set up the Authenticator app. Once he set up the Authenticator app, he can go and create a new account in there. And in this case, he's going to sign in. He's going to enter his credentials, and it will know that he's set up for a temporary access pass. He will enter the code that he received, which will then configure his device and set up his device and enable him to use this device for multi-factor authentication in the future. Okay, now let's switch to Adam's desktop. Adam just received his desktop. He was able to successfully set up his desktop using his Microsoft Authenticator app, and he can start working. The first thing that he will do is he will open up his browser, and it will take him to the My Apps portal, and he will be able to access all the apps immediately that was assigned to him. Naturally, he will go to his email and he will find a mail from his manager. The manager will give him some links to the applications that he needs. In this case, we have the financial dashboard, which is an intranet site, and that just works because he set up global secure access with private access to the intranet. And not only that, he will have access to the file server that he needs access to. And in this case, we will require him to do MFA to access that file server. So just by completing the MFA process, approving that request on his phone, he will have access to the file share, and then he will be on his way working. Now let's switch to the internet access side. On the internet access side, the user will also need to be set up. So the first thing that I'm going to do is I'm going to set up some catalogs to allow the setup of the users. So I have a catalog here, and this catalog I named Internet Access because I want to onboard some resources for the applications. And you'll see in here that I have set up a number of access packages. I have a access package that will allow users to access hacking sites. So this is for our secure operations center team. They need to be able to do research and look at hacking sites. And then we also have an access package for social networking. So on the hacking side, this is simple, just adding a user to a specific group. Once you are part of that group, you will have access to that site. And then on the policy side, you will see that I'm only going to allow my IT department and my SOC team to be able to access this access package. On the social networking side, this is a simple policy again that I need to set up. On this side, I have a group that will allow people to access their groups and teams and the social networking site. So once you are a member of this team, you will be able to access that. And then on the policy side, I'm going to allow any member in my team to request access to this package. So let's look at the configuration of the internet access side. So you've already seen the profile enabled for internet access. To enable this functionality, I need to set up a few web content filtering policies. So the first thing that I need to set up is a policy that will block users from accessing certain websites. To do this, I'm going to create a policy that will block bad sites for those users. I need to give this policy a name, and then I need to set up some rules of what I'm going to block using this policy. And I'm going to block a few web categories and things like alcohol, criminal activity, and so on, and even social networking, because in this organization, we believe normal users shouldn't do social networking during the day. Once this is done, I can also set up another policy for my SOC team to go and create a policy for blocking hacking sites and allowing the SOC team to access those sites. So I'm going to just forward the timer here and create another policy for those users. So in this case, I'm going to first create a policy for social networking sites. And in this case, I want to allow that. So then I'm going to add a rule, say social networking sites, and then add the social networking component and save that as a policy. And I'm also going to create this hacking site. So that is the ability to now allow those two different sites. Once you've created those policies, you have to set up the security profiles for those users. In terms of the security profiles, you need to set up a policy to allow the social networking sites and then associate that with the policy that we've just created on the web content filtering side. I set up the policy's priority of 1,000 so that it will overrule the default policy. And then I can link the policy that I created of the social networking site to this user. Let's create that. And I'm going to do a similar setup for my hacking sites. The final step in this process is to go and set up conditional access. So the conditional access will create the possibility for the users that I designate to go and serve certain sites and not go to other sites, and then also create the exceptions for those users that I want to allow to go to the sites. So the first policy that I'm going to set up is allow social networking. On the social networking side, I need to assign that group that I selected previously as part of the access policy to allow the user to serve the site. And then on target resources side, I need to set this up as a secure access profile and select internet access. And then on the session side, I need to go and set up this as a global security profile and pick the social networking sites. So now I have a policy that once somebody is part of that group, they will get access to the social networking sites. Let's enable that and create it. And then I will do something similar for the networking sites, and let's just forward that and you'll see it available there. So now that we've set up both these conditional access policies and we've set up the profiles for that to facilitate the access, let's look at our networking access for those users. So in here, we have our user and he can access the web. And I'm going to go to the site that normal users shouldn't have access to. So if I click on the site, you will see that he will not have access. He can't reach this page because we are blocking him from accessing this page. So because our user is a member of the SOC team, he can go and request access in that access package that we created to go and see the site. So I'm going to go to the My Access portal and I'm going to request access to the site. So I'm going to click on this access package, click on continue. I can enter a justification and then wait for this access package to finish. If I look at my history, you will see that I will now have access to the site. And then if I go back to the site and I refresh, voila, I have access to my access package. So in this demo, you've seen how we've combined the capabilities of identity governance with private access and with internet access to make it so much easier for the IT administration to manage all of these processes, but also for the users. And we protect those users and they only have access that they need. And that's the end of our demo. Back to you, Mark.
Great. Thanks, Martin. Now, let's take a look then at how you can get Microsoft Entra Suite for your organization. As mentioned earlier, Microsoft Entra Suite builds on top of Microsoft Entra ID P1. Now, you may already have Entra ID P1, formerly Azure Active Directory Premium 1. It's included as part of Microsoft 365 E3 or other popular offerings. And as you see here, the Microsoft Entra Suite adds a significant breadth of capabilities, enabling you to extend the reach of your Microsoft investment to more applications in your environment, automate the access and identity governance and security response processes, and have simplified approvals. And many other capabilities we didn't get a chance to show today, like identity protection or verified ID, are included in the Microsoft Entra Suite. Now, what do we recommend organizations doing when they get started? Well, for many organizations, they're already on the journey to move to least privilege, the journey to adopt cloud services and cloud infrastructure platforms, and the journey to use zero trust principles in order to ensure least privilege and that organizations, individuals, devices, and basically all the entities in the system only have access if and when needed and for no longer. So where do we recommend organizations getting started? Well, for many organizations, there's some very easy things that they can do first with the Microsoft Entra Suite, starting with automatic remediation of risky sign-ins. Turning on Microsoft Entra ID protection helps organizations ensure that if a individual's credentials may have been compromised, automatic controls kick in order to reduce the risk of a credential being misused and enable the end user to automatically recover and get back to a known good state. In addition, we recommend organizations take a look at existing access. As we saw, you can easily connect Microsoft Entra to many applications already present in your environment. So, where do you get started? Well, for many organizations, they would start by understanding who already has access, using features like the access reviews in order to ensure that the people who currently have access still need access going forward, and then turning on more of the automation capabilities that Martin showed to ensure that not only do you have clean access when you're integrating your applications to Microsoft Entra Suite, but that access continues to stay clean over time. Third, the zero trust capabilities that Martin showed with the Microsoft Entra Internet Access and Microsoft Entra Private Access help to ensure that people only have access to the applications and resources that they need. And as you saw, the users were able to connect to on-premises systems like file stores, systems that don't even have single sign-on through modern protocols, but still use traditional on-premises protocols. With these controls, with internet access and private access, organizations don't need to give their employees or their vendors or contractors access to the entire network. They can scope down and only give access to the applications and resources that they need, regardless of whether it's an on-premises system or hosted in any of the cloud infrastructure platforms. And then finally, orchestrating the account and access lifecycle policies. Organizations often have had challenge in the past with what should happen when employees join, move, or leave, or guests onboard to the organization but stay there indefinitely. Using the Microsoft Entra Suite capabilities, organizations can easily put into place automation tying to HR systems, end-user self-service and approval workflows in order to then standardize the process in order to ensure that accounts are only created in Active Directory or Microsoft Entra ID when needed. And those accounts have accountability. They're tied back to authoritative systems like an HR source. They're tied to a sponsor for a guest. And that helps to ensure that as people's need for access rights change, those access rights can be automatically reviewed or removed. This reduces the risk of inappropriate access or lingering access. We don't want users to have accounts or access longer than needed. And by being able to delegate controls to managers and sponsors to approve accounts and approve access, or to application owners to review and approve who should and continue to have access to applications, and the automation tied to HR sources allows you to then ensure that people only have access to applications, whether on-premises or cloud, for as long as needed. And as their need for access changes or it expires, those access rights are torn down, and their ability to connect or get sign-on tokens to applications are removed automatically. And we have many resources to help you try out and become familiar with Microsoft Entra Suite. You can sign up for a free trial and see this in your own environment. You can try it out with your own applications. We have blogs available that walk through the capabilities, as well as introductory and mechanics videos that show you the breadth of capabilities beyond what we're able to provide today. In addition, we have lots of documentation on the learn.microsoft.com website that walks through each of the capabilities we showed today and many more with tutorials, guides, APIs, and lots of more references to help to ensure that you have all the information you need to evaluate and see Microsoft Entra Suite can help in your environment. Now, if you're watching this on the Tech Accelerator, stay tuned. We'll have a further discussion where we'll answer your questions about Microsoft Entra Suite and how to use it in your organization. Thank you.